whilst we are a platform, we are here to serve tour guides that want to become or to sustain themselves as entrepreneurs. So in a sense, we fundamentally believe that tour guides, even more than the tours that they bring, but the actual guides are the lifeblood of our business. Now, that said, we need to give them business because they can't do what they do without ensuring that they have viability in terms of bookings. So we very much behave as a marketplace and a platform to bring travelers in, to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place to help support travelers find guides. Really, the way to say it is we want to connect travelers and make more meaningful connections through local guides and local experiences.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tourpreneur Travel Business Podcast. We don't usually do late-breaking news-style Tourpreneur episodes. They're usually planned out months in advance and talk about discussion topics that are evergreen. But the reason for the season right now, for this specific conversation, is things that have been happening in our little tour and activity industry lately. And I'm joined today by the Chief Community Officer of Withlocals, Sherif, and I'm also with the CEO of ToursByLocals, Lisa Chen, to discuss some things that have happened in our industry with Airbnb. And before I throw it to Withlocals to sort of begin the conversation, I just want to say, Lisa and Sherif, it's really great to have both of you on the Tourpreneur podcast. Thanks for being here.
We're happy to be here. I wish the situation were a little bit different, but happy to be here.
Now our audience that doesn't know is getting very excited.
Yeah.
Sherif, why are we here?
We are here because somehow through the grapevine, it trickled that a certain member of our industry was accused of poaching guides from other platforms, namely ToursByLocals and Withlocals. And yeah, it was posted on LinkedIn as we discovered that there were accounts on our platform using Airbnb extension emails, reaching out to our community and saying, hey, would you like to become a guide on Airbnb? So Matthias rightfully called them out, and then it snowballed from there.
It was picked up by the press by Dennis Shaw of Skift, and he's always a good sleuth. Dennis then, I think, reached out to Lisa because it also happened to ToursByLocals. I'm wondering, Lisa, if you could share your perspective on kind of just, what went down.
Yeah, so we saw the same thing. So when Matthias pointed it out on LinkedIn, I think I commented, but we did see a number of accounts get created and try to, and I want to use the term poaching very generically, because I think one of the unique components that makes both Withlocals and ToursByLocals so great for guides is that we want guides to succeed, full stop. And we are not a tour operator. We are a platform that allows guides to list their tours. And so we want them to be successful wherever. So it's not necessarily that they were poaching because guides can list wherever they want to list. But what was the most troublesome is that they violated our terms and conditions to do so. So rather than doing their homework and being more focused on integrity and building trust in the category, they were lazy and fast-tracked and, most importantly, violated our respective sites' terms and conditions in order to try to get these guides to list on Airbnb experiences. So this is not like one versus the other. It could be an and. But when our terms and conditions are violated, we are going to go after the entity that does that every single time. And so Dennis had reached out to me after I think Matthias had written his LinkedIn. We provided some additional information about the attempts that we saw, and then he ended up writing the article about it, which I'm very grateful for, because I think because we're here and it opens up a hopefully more productive dialogue about what we want our pillars to stand for.
I think that's a great point to make, that we're not here to sort of continue to pile on Airbnb. I think there's been some comments made that it was a very small team that made an error in judgment. We don't need to spend the entire conversation slamming them. It's an opportunity to talk about what we're about as an industry and also what a virtuous platform can do as a value add for our industry. Sherif, is that the way we should take this? Because some people in our community have said, this is life as a business. Like, we watch our tours get copied. A lot of tour operators have had guides copy their entire companies and then start up as competitors. In Silicon Valley, scraping your clients is a fine art. It's a daily practice, scraping the clients of other companies. Is it a similar deal for you, that it's about standing up for what we are as an industry in our little nook?
I mean, there's no demand from exclusivity from our side either, and it would be a tall ask to go to somebody and say you're going to be exclusively with us, because that also puts a huge responsibility on us. And it's a liability for them. I wouldn't do it. If somebody came to me and said, you list with me exclusively and I will be the primary source of all your revenue, I probably would say, no, I need to diversify. I need to hedge my bets. I need to make sure I have different revenue streams coming from different places. And yes, I will give more loyalty and time and focus to where I feel the most valued. And I think this is a big part of, you've seen the conversations about what guides say about their relationships with ToursByLocals and with locals, is that where they feel valued and where they feel that the platform is a partner, is adding value to them, is where they would probably also invest more. And I think that is the crux of it. That is where I would like to focus on today as well.
Before we get to such a shiny, happy field, I do want to address something that is a constant refrain in our community, which is platforms are greedy, faceless intermediaries who go in and essentially put themselves unjustly in between a customer and a guide who would have otherwise just found each other. And it's a criticism that is as old as kind of the platform capitalism that we live in. Lisa, what do you have to say to that? In other words, what is the value add that a ToursByLocals brings to the life of a tour guide?
Yeah, I think it's threefold. So one is that whilst we are a platform, we are here to serve tour guides that want to become or to sustain themselves as entrepreneurs. So in a sense, we fundamentally believe that tour guides, even more than the tours that they bring, but the actual guides, are the lifeblood of our business. Now, that said, we need to give them business because they can't do what they do without ensuring that they have viability in terms of bookings. So we very much behave as a marketplace and a platform to bring travelers in, to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place to help support travelers find guides. But ultimately, we want to serve really the way to say it is, we want to connect travelers and make more meaningful connections through local guides and local experiences. So our platform fundamentally is there to do that. We're not there to do business at all cost. For example, we don't work with big tour operators. That's fine. That's a different category. That's not us.
I think this is why a conversation with you two in particular is very different than if we also had in the room other marketplaces in our industry. And it's because you're specifically only onboarding individual guides. You're not also selling Louvre tickets, and you're not also selling all of the other accoutrements that a Klook or a Viator or a GetYourGuide might have on there. For you, Sherif, your commissions all remain roughly the same as these other platforms. It's anytime anybody's not getting some money that could have been theirs, they ask, where is it going? Can you break down where a commission goes?
Yeah, this is
Clearly not into wall decorations for your office. I will say that much.
I am using my wife's office today. Mine is messier than this. So this is the nice one. So thank you, Marta, for letting me use your space today.
You didn't want to have this conversation on your normal gold throne that I talked to you on?
My Batman chair.
No, but I think it'd be helpful to kind of just decipher what the money is being spent on.
Absolutely. And I think number one, the biggest and most underrated by those who don't know, is the cost of demand. Driving, it is very expensive to drive traffic in a very competitive market where you are competing with bigger players with potentially much deeper pockets. Well, not potentially, with much deeper pockets than. And so that part of the competition. And then the keywords, sometimes you don't know what people are looking for. And some of those keywords can become very generic, and that becomes very expensive. That is the biggest chunk of the cost. And then you have to also talk about the platform, the cost of managing the technology and building and maintaining the platform and keeping it up to date and creating new tools and offering services to the guide community that they can use to manage their day-to-day operations easily, seamlessly. Though it may not seem the case for many who obviously will come back and say, yeah, but why don't you do this and why don't you do that? There's only so many things that you could do at the same time. Even with a very big team, there's so many things that you could do at one time to maintain the platform. So that's another big chunk of the cost that goes there. And then you have the transaction fees, like there is a cost of exchanging the money, exchanging hands between people, building the marketing and advertising outside of just the demand channels. So that is more or less the biggest chunks of the cost goes there. And over the years, we've had to also increase our take in order to make sure that the business is sustainable so that we can continue to drive value and drive traffic and generate revenue for our community.
Lisa, did he forget any costs?
No, I think he said it well. It's bringing travelers to the site, ensuring that they can find the tours and tour guides that they're looking for in as seamless a way as possible. And there's lots of infrastructure and technology to support that. Then there's the mechanics of actually transacting. Payment processors take a lot of money. And then it's for us, we do have a very hands-on approach in terms of guiding guides, helping guides, supporting guides, as well as hand-holding and supporting travelers. So we do have quite a big customer service and service excellence team. We are 24/7. We do not outsource. So these are employees, and many of them highly tenured employees. In fact, I have a fun fact. This is hot off the press, but we have an employee, and I'll keep their name out of it just in case, but we have an employee who just satisfied his final country and has been to every single country in the world. Think about the countries that are in our world, and he's been to every single one of them. So we very much have team members that carry that philosophy around travel first and engage in the whole kind of Mark Twain approach of travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And so we're very specific in terms of who we employ. And then we do have a team that helps support guides particularly to ensure that we're bringing in the right guides and that they're supporting those guides along their journey. So like our average tenure is 8 years for a guide. So we do have a team of people who are helping shepherd those guides for their success.
There was a quote in our community forum that came from somebody that was praising Tours by Locals. They said, "For us guides, Tours by Locals is family. We are emotionally attached to them. They even offered loans during COVID. They were always supporting and helping, and not greedy like others." This idea that there are humans behind websites sometimes is surprising to people.
Gets lost.
And yeah, there's this conception that all you do is build a website, and websites are pretty easy to build now, and then you just collect the money. But it takes a lot. I've worked for tour operators where I've managed guide teams. Guides are a lot. We are a lot as a class of individuals. And Sherif, what's impressed me, I've taken tours by both Tours by Locals and Withlocals, is that every Withlocals tour that I've taken, somebody knows you. The guide knows you, Sherif. But this is a big deal because it means that you're connecting with your suppliers on that human level. Sherif, what have you learned from the many, many miles you've clocked in your private jet as you've flown around to meet with Withlocals guides teams all around the world?
I'm doing something wrong if there's a private jet involved.
I'm just continuing with this theme, but I hope people don't take it seriously. I am joking for the record.
Thank you. Withlocals is a B Corp company. We do
That's
not own
a
a
good
private
fact
jet.
to lead with. Thank you.
Just want to put that on the table. Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. And I do know and have a relationship with a lot of our guides in person around the world. And I think the thing I've learned the most out of this is how much they actually value this connection. I mean, the number of times you pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, or there's a problem and you're like, you know what, let me call this person and talk to them and not just send them an email. And the biggest of problems, the biggest of issues fade away very quickly on a phone call, and they were like, thank you. All I wanted was this phone call. You know what? Forget it. The problem will get resolved, or if it doesn't, life goes on. But just this phone call, just this gesture, the fact that you care, to give me a call or to have a conversation with me, or fly into the destination and have a face-to-face, or invite the community around for a meetup and drinks. That's not about business. I mean, there are many times where I would go into a destination on my holidays. It's a habit. My wife also hates it, that I'll be on a holiday and I'll be like, okay, you know what? We're in a destination where there's guides here. Let me just call them up and get them up, and we'll just meet for drinks. No ulterior motives, no business objectives. Of course, they end up asking questions about the business, but that's not the motive. The motive is to get together and share these moments and connect on a different level, as we encourage them to connect with travelers and with each other within communities, also with us. I think that is the thing that stands out to me the most, is how much they value this connection, and that's why we keep doing it.
Surprise, surprise. They like human connection. If you think about what they do on a day-to-day basis, I mean, that is the whole thrust of their being, their businesses, is to connect with humans on a one-on-one basis and share meaningful moments. So I love everything that Sherif, you do for your guides.
When it comes to sort of supporting your guides, you have to first get guides. And so I'm kind of interested in your philosophies around how many guides you want on your platform. Are you always on the Airbnb style hunt for more guides? Or are you trying to balance supply and demand? And if so, how are you selecting for your platforms? Because I hear it all the time. Oh, they've kept me waiting for 3 months. They didn't immediately take me onto their platform. And other people saying, oh, I got in a few days. And that's kind of endemic to everybody that's applying to platforms. And so I'm interested in, Lisa, your selection criteria and the way you're thinking about growing, but growing sustainably.
Yeah, and I think that's it, growing sustainably. So we do have to be mindful that there are mechanics that we need to be mindful of. So the last thing we want to do is bring on a really great guide on our site who doesn't get a booking for, 6 months or a year, because we're not quite bringing in the demand in that particular area. So we are mindful. We want guides to succeed. So we're mindful in terms of bringing on guides and the tours that they create with an eye towards being able to drive bookings to them. Now, that said, first and foremost, we look for guides who have a deep experience in a particular area, a passion, an expertise, and who are storytellers. And then lastly, who are hosts. Because if you don't have that last piece, and a great example is somebody took a tour with a guide who was a history professor and was very well qualified to do the tour that they did, but it was hot and they didn't provide waters. And so we really do look at the triad. Somebody who has an expertise, who's either done guiding before, maybe this is their second career, their first career was a curator or a chef, but then also somebody who is a host. And so that's how we interview. And we obviously we use tools and things like video calls, but we do have human eyes and we do have human intervention involved in the interview and onboarding process. I think the last thing is having a point of view. So being able to tell stories, but also having a really unique point of view that's authentic to them, their background, or their particular passion or expert.
Sherif, anything to add?
Not very different. I think we really are aligned there. Withlocals does have a different range, I think, sometimes of hosts that are not just guides, because there's home dinners and cooking classes and workshops. But I agree with Lisa 100%. Hospitality and hospitability, like being a hospitable human being, welcoming. The whole idea is see the city through the eyes of a local. Now, if that local does not feel like somebody who's welcoming you into their country, into their city, into their culture, that breaks it. That then everything else doesn't matter. How much experience you have doesn't matter. So I agree with Lisa 100%. Is that being hospitable part is really what makes or breaks that connection. And we definitely look for that. You can see it also in people's reviews in our online presence. It comes across very clearly. And then you can make that selection and move forward. And of course, everybody can have an off day, and we are human beings.
And then that's why we have our respective customer service teams to go out there and then to help shepherd the travelers who might have not had the type of experience they want, and then to help guide and educate the guides on how to do even better next time. I will say that, there's a third-party website called Trustpilot, and both of us have an incredibly high rating on Trustpilot. It's really difficult to maintain. And I think that's a testament to, and guess the reviewers are are travelers, not guides. But going back to the type of guides that we both recruit, and by the way, we do have some overlap in terms of guides that list on both our sites. But what I see in both our Trustpilot scores and theirs and Withlocals is that people praise the guides. So I'd like to think that we're both doing something right in terms of mapping and matching travelers to those guides and ensuring that the guides deliver on an exceptional, immersive, authentic experience that travelers then rave about.
And touching
How does a
on
guide?
reviews for a second, I like what you just said, Lisa. There is often series, and nobody's immune from bad reviews, right? They happen. But there are so many cases where I will see a bad review that says, "Let me start by saying the guide was amazing," and in different circumstances, it would have been different. But these are the things I didn't like about the tour. But it invariably starts with, "Let me start," like, it's a caveat. The guide was fantastic. I see this a lot as well, even in bad reviews. So that's a testament to the selection process on both sides, on Tours by Locals end.
Well, here's the awkwardness of being a guide platform. The guide is the tour. So there's the guide component, and there's, I guess, the idea that I'm taking this tour, but the tour's so inextricably linked. The guide isn't just a fulfillment service of a tour that's been designed by a tour operator. It's one and the same. How do you think, Lisa, about balancing the standardization of supplies so that the customer can kind of best understand what they're selecting, but then also making sure the guide is free to shine in the way that they want to shine?
Yeah, so I think it's a delicate dance, because when you are a traveler, and especially somebody who's new to the category, and by the way, just kind of coming full circle, one of the things that I think GetYourGuide, Viator, and Airbnb can do is to bring new people to the category at a much lower price point, because I think the price point for us is even higher than the price point with locals. So we are not a inexpensive product. And so typically the thing that we find is people just sort of wanting to trial the category. So I think there's a place that those other OTAs can have in sort of rising the tide, that floats all boats. Now, that said, one of the things that we find is when you come to the site and maybe you haven't done a private tour before, or maybe you haven't taken a private tour with us, there is more of the travelers do lean in on the tour itself. So the type of tour, to make sure that we have the breadth and depth of tour inventories to match that demand. But what I find fascinating is that over 30% of our tours, and as a reminder, our platform is all private all the time and often customizable. So one of the things I find fascinating is over 30% of our tours are customized tours. Now, customized can take many shapes or flavors. It could be, I want to swap going to the Louvre with something else. Or instead of going to Barcelona, which is overcrowded, I want to go outside of Barcelona. And can you recommend a place that we can go that kind of gives me the same flavor? Maybe they want to add an hour, what have you. Maybe they have mobility concerns, or they have multiple generations with a 5-year-old and an 80-year-old, and they need to kind of accommodate all three, and they need to customize as a result. But that's happening a lot. And so that's where I think it flips for travelers, that they're actually buying the tour guide. And when I say buying, I mean, booking the tour guide. And so when we have travelers come back, I find that they do actually spend more time interacting with the guide, messaging them, even after they purchase the tour. And one of our value propositions, or one of the things that we promise, is that the guide that you buy a tour from is the guide that takes you on that tour. So you'll have had a chance to get to know them before the tour.
And I think we are there are not that many platforms that I can think of that facilitate that connection prior to the existence of
I think we're the only two.
There's a lot of people that gatekeep that a lot of platforms, agencies, they will gatekeep that connection until the tour actually happens. We facilitate the connection because it is part of our value proposition and part of the business model to make sure that they interact, they connect, they feel that this is going to be a great tour. It breaks the ice, so you don't have that awkward moment when you first meet. "Hey, I'm meeting you for the first time. You've met, you've had a conversation. You've told me what you like and you don't like. You told me who you're coming with." That makes for a much better experience for both the guide and the guest, especially on a private tour, which again, we're very similar in that regards. We do 100% private. You're going to spend 3, 5, 7 hours, 2 days with somebody.
It's an
You want to
intimate
know,
experience.
it's an intimate experience. You want to know that you're going to like that person. And the chances of you building that rapport and having a great time because the ice was broken months in advance is significantly higher. And that comes back in feedback, in reviews, in return customers who know how to use the platform for that purpose. So, absolutely.
And that comes back full circle to trust. Trust. The travelers trust in the guide prior to taking the tour. They can feel good about knowing that they are going to have this intimate experience. They can trust that the experience will go well and that they'll be well taken care of. And then that trust extends for guides as well, making sure that guides trust in our platform and in our ability to deliver them travelers who are going to map to the type of people that they want to spend time with. Because even though the travelers are the ones having this intimate experience, the guides are too. And the guides don't want to be stuck with people who are not appreciative or don't understand the type of experience that these guides are looking to deliver. So that trust component kind of goes both ways.
And full circle on the trust is us also as platforms trusting the guides and the guests with this connection and not having feeling that we have to gatekeep it.
Well, that would be a great way to come full circle and end this, but I have 10 more minutes to chat with you, so I'm going to use it all up. Sherif, similar to Lisa, how you have two entrances in a booking a tour. You can book a local or you can book a tour by a local, not a tours by locals, but what's the customer behavior? How many people are booking your food tour and then selecting a local versus how many people are dating for the right local directly?
Very similar to the pattern here. The thing is, it starts on Google. It starts on where people don't start. A lot of people don't start on our website. Going back to what we said in the beginning, driving demand is expensive because you're on these search platforms telling people, "Hey, this is what you're looking for. Look at me. Come to us. We'll offer you something that you're looking for." And most people are not looking for a particular guide or even a private guide. They are looking for, "I want to go and have a guided tour in Cairo that shows me the pyramids and the Grand Museum." And then once they end up on the website, they find the guides that they're that the way the booking works is you can either find the tour and then choose a guide, or look for the guides and then decide with them, also personalize with them what it is that you want to do. But the pattern is very similar. Return customers, exactly like Lisa said, they know now, they've used the platform, they know how it works. So they may start conversations. A lot of them start with, "I've used Withlocals before, and this is what I like about it. So this is why I'm reaching out to you." But yeah, the tours are the primary driver, I would say.
Is it mainly Google that you're getting demand from? Are there other sources? Are you popping around Facebook ads? Or where are people discovering you?
I would say primarily Google. That's the biggest one. We are diversifying. We are working on other platforms, Bing, YouTube, social, different platforms to diversify. But I would say in terms of paid ads, Google is probably our biggest driver of traffic.
Lisa?
Yeah, I think similar. So Google, Bing, Facebook, social media, also through just organic content. So, one of the things that we like to do is write about the tours that we have, the guides that we have. A great example is we've, just launched what will become an annual guide award, or rather guide awards, where we honor the top 20 guides with various, lifetime award and different regional awards, most booked guide, that type of thing. And so we're able to use our platform and our advocacy within the guiding space to then drive free traffic to the site, which is always the best. But yes, organic traffic as well.
Is there an opportunity to be starting to look at social video, given the rise of social commerce and the fact that you have these personalities, these people who are ready-made for vertical video to be selling people on the category, to selling people on your platform? And if so, why aren't you already there highlighting your guides?
Is there an opportunity? Why are we not doing it? We've tried, we've played around with the idea. It is, again, goes down to prioritization, cost, and ability to do this in a scalable way that is cost effective. Because I'll tell you one thing. When we started with locals, when we started rolling out to new destinations in the beginning, it was fly a team to the destination with videographers and photographers and film everything and create content. And that was a great way to do it back then. We learned a lot. We've evolved over time, and here we are today rolling out 200 destinations in 1 year, as we did a couple of years ago, not using that model because it's not sustainable. It's just simply not a scalable way of doing it. So that's probably the biggest roadblock to using video. And then if you want the guides and the community that we have, cities that we have to help and generate this content, it's taking time away from them doing what they want to be doing, which is guiding. It's also asking them to do something that's not necessarily always in their wheelhouse. So it's out of their comfort zone. So you need to facilitate that, train for that. Will we do it one day? I hope so. If tools emerge that help us do this in a scalable way, but right now it's just not feasible.
Yeah, I'll call that. We do. So we have it on our site where guides can have videos of themselves. It's an opt-in because, to Sherif's point, not all guides have the desire or the wherewithal to produce content. Those that do can, but we also serve over 181 countries. And so there are many places where the mechanics around filming just are not in place such that the guides can put their best foot forward. So like Sherif, I think both of us would be down for if there was a tool or a mechanism in place to do this and when we say at scale, we really mean so that we can raise the awareness of all the guides, because what we don't want to do is create a point of friction between the guides. So really, when we say at scale, it really is meant to be something that we can equitably distribute for all of our guides on our platform. And so until we can find that set of tools or those mechanisms, it's something that happens more ad hoc.
I will say this though, this is something that comes. So we do have a help center article that says if you want to create a video and put it on the platform, here you go. Here are the guidelines. Look at these, create something really cool and send it to us. And if it meets our guidelines and criteria, we'll go ahead and put it on your profile. Not many people end up taking us up on that because of how cumbersome it is. A couple have, and you could go, I can send you some links, Mitch, to have a look if you want, where they did end up producing something really cool that ended up making it on the website and looks just as good, if sometimes not better, than the ones that were produced by a team that flew to a destination. I would say for the guides, I think this is something that a lot of people still don't think of themselves as when they are guides that are running their own businesses effectively as an individual guide. There is a degree of why don't guides also invest in their own tools, right? You should be thinking about this and saying, this video is my way of showcasing myself on the platform and differentiating myself from everybody else. Why don't I go out and shoot a great video? Why don't I go out and invest in a photo shoot where it's going to look amazing and authentic and I'm going to be able to showcase myself better? So that is a question I put out to the community. I've asked this to a few people, but it's again boils down to still a mindset shift of I'm a guide, you give me business, I do the tour, versus I'm going to help promote myself on your platform using the tools that you provide me to be able to showcase myself better. That's still something that's missing.
It's too bad we don't have a place where guides go to get educated and the guide can, I
Listen,
wonder who could help us with that effort.
None of you are talking about trip school guides because we take a photo for them when they
Good.
graduate.
Good. We'll keep
But
doing
they
it.
still have to upload it. You know, you're right. It is a mindset shift, but it is a reality. It's a bit of a beauty contest out there. And so why not tell the story of who you are by a well-done storytelling-based profile? I see profiles up and on both your sites, and it's like, I do this tour, this tour, this tour. That gives me no information about who you are, and I'm trying to make a connection with you through a few photographs and through a few paragraphs of information, so use it wisely. Lisa, how do people win? How does a guide win a beauty contest when you sort of look at the data? And we'll step away from calling it that so I don't get in trouble, but a customer's coming to your platform. What are the best practices for a guide to really show up ahead of the rest or to be there on par with the rest beyond reviews? I understand reviews are currency, but
That's it. Yeah.
beyond reviews.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, the visual, like having really engaging visual photos that bring to life what they want people to experience on a tour is first and foremost what travelers will look at. And then they're going to read. And in fact, this is one of the things that we want to work on redesigning, because I think right now, to your point, even the way our tour details page, which is what we call it, isn't really set up with a motive intent in mind. It is very functional, and that's something we want to change. But to your point, I think it is about not just talking about the points of interest, talk about what you want the person or the traveler to get out of that. So we are going to visit this place with an idea of learning about the local history of the families that used to live here, instead of saying, hey, we're going to go visit Pompeii or whatever the case may be. So I think it's about helping travelers understand the feeling or what they'll leave with, in addition to straight up points of interest. I think it's also helpful to be less verbose and more to create more sound bites, right? So people don't want to read a wall of text. They want to get a quick hit of where they're going to be going, and then maybe there'll be a deeper explanation underneath. And that's one of the other things that we want to kind of work on, is a summary and then a deeper dive. Now, I do want to be clear, for every tour that we have, we do profile the guides. There is a profile for the guide that produces that tour. So in many cases, they're also reading the tour guide as they're consuming what they're going to be doing on that particular tour. The other thing is, if you have a particular, we call it an awesomeness index internally, but it's if you have a particular authentic connection to the tour you're giving. So you are a former chef, if you're doing a food, set of tours, or you're a former docent, or you are from the area and have seen that area change over, 3-4 decades. You have a family connection or what have you, but sharing how the guide connects to that particular place and the particular parts of the tour is really helpful. And then the last thing is that hospitality piece. So if you can drive, or if you have access to drive, you can talk, it's important to say, hey, I can accommodate young kids, older kids, people with mobility issues. I can make changes on the fly. I can customize it, but remembering to include the hospitality components of the tour as well. I can give you water, that type of thing.
100%. Everything Lisa just said. We tell them, showcase your uniqueness, right? If there is something unique in your offering or in what the guest is going to experience with you, that should definitely come across in your profile and in the experience. If you are somebody that's able to give unique access or a unique perspective, that should come across, because that is how you're going to differentiate yourself on the platform. A practical advice I tell guides sometimes is visit the platform. Go to the website, find yourself, look at what your profile looks like, and tell me if you would book you. Because if you would not book you, I guarantee you guests will also probably not want to book you. So have a look at it from a practical sense. What does your picture look like to the guest? Did you just upload a profile picture because you thought, hey, this is just like Facebook, it's this icon in the top right-hand corner, nobody's going to see it? That's not the case here. Look at your profile the way the guest sees it, and then you'll figure out, okay, this is not working. These are the things I need to do to make it better.
We're professional storytellers. We're not visual merchandisers of ourselves, and we're not personal branding experts. That being said, there's a real vibe shift, as the kids say, in who is showing up as a guide. That has a lot to do with the new TikTok generation. People are making personal connections with their audience by showing people the city they love, sometimes telling stories, and they're naturally visual people that know how to make that connection. And I mean, David Harry just won Best Tour Guide of London right now. He's not a blue badge guide that went through the 3 years of certification and everything else. David Harry's a TikTok star with 400,000 followers, and he's a former Deutsche Bank banker who's just weird on camera, and people make that connection. And so it's not that it's shifting immediately all in one go, but it's a trend from my perspective in terms of who's showing up as a guide, and it's changing what a customer wants out of that relationship, which means it's not just the fact that you know everything about New York City anymore. It's like, I want to be around you, to Lisa's point of being a host.
And having a point of view, having a distinct
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. A host, being a person. And that point of view thing is so interesting, which leads me to wrap up with this. That's the plan of Airbnb. Airbnb experiences is like, we want a point of view. We want a Michelin star chef that does this one kind of cuisine. We want people with personality. We want the most locals possible in the most local fashion possible. And somehow we're going to magically scale that. We need the category to grow. We need more recognition amongst travelers that a guided experience should be a no-brainer part of what you're doing when you go and travel. It's still a minority of travelers that think that way. So Lisa, what do you think of Airbnb's gambit in this?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I want them to succeed because they bring people into the space. They bring people into the category. I think the types of experiences that they're doing are complementary to the types of private, custom, bespoke tours that we provide, i.e. they bring in people to the category, and then as people get used to experiencing travel and connecting, they want to have that at an increasingly intimate level. So I want them to succeed. That said, guides are people, they're not chattel, and they're entrepreneurs. And so what I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of is that we don't erode the category itself and we don't erode trust in the guide community. So I'm hopeful that, to your point, this was a small subset of people that went awry. I hope that we can collectively raise up not only people who trial the category, but raise the bar in terms of the and the experiences that travelers ultimately have with guides.
Sherif, last words.
100%. Everybody wants to see Airbnb succeed with experiences, I think, or I hope, and it would be great for the category in general. Whether it's what Lisa said earlier about how they bring in people possibly at a different price point than we do, but just to give them a taste of what an experience with a guide looks like, and then it makes our life easier to say, okay, fine, you've tried the group experience. Here's something else you might want to try. Here's a more intimate experience. Here's a small group experience instead of the bigger groups. There's a lot of ways that we could go around this, but just having the brand power of Airbnb and the trust that maybe not the guide community yet at large, but the public, the people, the travelers have in that brand would go a long way for us as a category in general. So indeed, I'd love to see them succeed third time around.
And honestly, I want them to succeed because that means guides will have another place to succeed themselves. Because ultimately, we succeed when guides or people who want to become tour guides and invest in becoming really productive tour guides can succeed by themselves. So ultimately, that helps grow the career path for tour guides. So it's
and attract new guides who are not maybe thinking about it
new
now.
Guides. Exactly.
But see it through an opportunity on Airbnb.
Listen, you two are completing each other's sentences at this point. Are we going to wait to hear about the announcement of tours by and with locals? Want to break some more news? Anybody?
No. I mean, look, you never know. Never say never. I thought I would, never do some of the things that I'd find myself now doing, like eating dinner early as I've gotten a little bit older. The thought of having dinner before 8:30 when I was in my 20s was like appalling to me. Now I love it. But no, there is no news. What I will say is that I'm very much grateful for having another company that's similar to us, because I think, one, we help bring it will elevate the category overall and bring a platform for both travelers and guides to show them a different path forward. One where they don't have to take big bus tours if they don't want to. One where there is more of a focus on sustainable travel, whether it's smaller groups walking, whether it's off the beaten path places. So, the solution to pollution is dilution. The solution to people pollution is to get people to go to different places, and to have two platforms that really focus on bringing money and a career path to local guides and not big corporations. That, for me, is really encouraging that we both have that. I mean, could we join forces in the future? Maybe, but as long as we're on the path to do that in whatever shape or form that takes, I think will be good for travelers and guides.
I think just having this conversation and having an open channel of communication where we share openly, learn from each other, just have an ongoing partnership, not a written partnership, but an ongoing partnership where we feel together we can make this work, and together we can both grow and be better as entities for our companies, but for our guides and for the communities that we serve and for our guests. I think that is already a successful partnership.
And we've shown it, because the way that this whole podcast came to be is that there was an error made by a company. Matthias, myself, kind of collectively got together and propelled the issue forward. It got recognized by our industry journalists, and including yourself, and we were able to talk about it and to hopefully remind people of the importance of trust as a currency, and then also to help reinforce with guides and travelers that we are here to help support them and to make connections for them. So in the end, we have already shown how the partnership can work well spiritually, if not on paper.
Sherif and Lisa, we appreciate both of you. We appreciate that you do give literally a platform to all of the storytellers out there in the world. And most importantly, I appreciate you coming onto Tourpreneur and sharing your insights with our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
very
both.
much.